This episode is brought to you by Dashlane. Try Dashlane Premium free for 30 days at www.dashlane.com/infographics. And never forget another password and keep all your online accounts secure. President John F. Kennedy once shocked the world with the words, "We choose to go to the moon." By we, he meant America, and thereby insinuated that once astronauts got there, that the entire country would share in their success. Fast forward decades later, and Yusaku Maezawa, a Japanese citizen, said something almost identical yet critically different. With excitement, he said the following: "I choose to go to the moon." What was once a goal that brought millions together has now become something that wedges an even wider gap between the top 1% and the rest of society. Was he right? Let's look at the privatization of space travel in this episode of the Infographics Show. Is SpaceX creating a world for only the rich? Yusaku Maezawa is not just anyone. He has a net worth of over $2 billion and is famous for creating the largest online mall in Japan, known as Zozotown. With his profits, he has already spent millions on priceless art, which he plans to showcase in his own museum. But he doesn't want to make a name for himself only with his eye for art and fashion. He also wants to be one of the first private citizens to go to the moon. How he plans to get there is with the big Falcon Rocket manufactured by SpaceX. SpaceX has so far designed 3 rockets: Falcon 1, which launched in 2006, Falcon 9, which launched in 2010, and Falcon Heavy, which launched in 2018. What has set these apart from the competition is the fact that they're cheaper than other models, and in the case of Falcon Heavy, can carry twice as much for a fraction of the cost. SpaceX created the Dragon spacecraft as well, with room for 7 astronauts on board. This was launched successfully on March 2nd using the Falcon 9 rocket. While unmanned, a mannequin named Ripley was on board, fitted with sensors to measure the impact of space throughout the trip. Its launch was a necessary step to prove travel on SpaceX's innovative machinery is safe for humans before manned travel can begin. Only then, and likely after a few additional such tests, can Big Falcon Rocket, the one Maezawa will use on his 2023 trip, be given the green light for its journey. The behemoth is 35 stories tall, and while similar in function to Falcon 9, is capable of propelling a spacecraft carrying as many as dozens into space. The anticipated trip to the moon is just a starting point for the rocket and the company. Once SpaceX has proven it can successfully take humans there and back, it wants to do much, much more. The ultimate goal is to expand to the extent that the company transports people to other planets to live. In fact, according to its creator Elon Musk, who was also the co-founder of PayPal, an investor and CEO of car manufacturer Tesla, his motivation in first forming the company was to find an out for humanity when, not if, it is to survive. He believes in the case of a nuclear catastrophe, a colony on Mars may be the only hope for mankind. He has set his sights on Mars as a more hospitable location for human life than the moon. By building a colony there, Musk believes that come what may, there's a chance that Earth can later be repopulated. Despite the accusations of many, Musk says that Mars isn't intended to be any type of escape for just the wealthy. The 1 million he hopes to take there will have to brave dangers, he claims, many as yet unknown. In fact, there's a good likelihood that several among the first inhabitants won't survive, while those who do will revel in the excitement of making it. It will also be far from a leisurely experience, at least at first. Settlers will be responsible for helping develop its infrastructure and making prolonged life on its surface even possible. He compares it to settling Antarctica. Those who will go will be the ones whose desire for a thrill will exceed the fear of danger, not simply the rich, many of whom will enjoy a life of cushy comfort on their home planet. He does have a point that Mars is quite different from Earth, with a unique set of obstacles to overcome. It is smaller, with less gravity and a thinner atmosphere that is almost entirely carbon dioxide. Without Earth's magnetic field, harmful levels of radiation are not deflected from its surface. It's also very cold, and average temperatures are minus 81 degrees Fahrenheit. Days are longer, and years last 687 days. It would take some adjusting to thrive on Mars, and without the use of assistive technology, it would not be possible. Then, of course, there are the dangers of the trip over as well. To enter and exit Earth's atmosphere means exposure to extreme changes in gravity as well as millions of pounds of thrust at thousands of miles per hour. This is not exactly comfortable, and even seasoned astronauts have been known to develop a condition known as space motion sickness. Interestingly, it has been shown that those with medical conditions that are well controlled are not at risk during spaceflight. Psychological stress, on the other hand, is currently a challenge for private space travel companies. Questionnaires meant to screen potential passengers for their emotional fitness have proven far less than accurate. Many look to pre-flight training as a chance to familiarize passengers with what to expect and to avoid in-flight anxiety. After all, the flight will be unlike anything people have ever seen or experienced before, and it's quite incomparable to relatively comfortable and, for many, rather unremarkable travel via plane. Then there's the fact that even in ideal circumstances, the risk of dying on a spacecraft is 10,000 times greater than on a commercial aircraft. Having this knowledge in the back of their minds may prove more than a little unsettling for some. For legal reasons, each and every person who is taken to the moon or in time to Mars will be well versed on the risks of such a trip. However, as Maezawa has shown, despite its known dangers, many of the wealthy elite remain excited about boarding a spacecraft for the experience of a lifetime. And clearly, Musk believes his company and its mission will ultimately be quite successful. In fact, when society does eventually take hold on the Red Planet, Musk has gotten far enough along in his planning that he's considered the type of government that will rule its people. In his opinion, it will not be a democracy like current-day America, but more of a direct democracy where the majority wins. Ideally, legislation passed would be short and sweet, easier to repeal than implement. And when society needs a break from legal issues, Musk has joked that there will be plenty of bars in which it can grab a drink. Mars bars. He's also joked, rather eerily, of an alternative system in which he is the emperor of the planet. As one of the few in control of who gets there and when, as well as who can eventually make it back, this is a little less amusing. This is not the only thing he said that rubs people the wrong way. For example, despite his denials that his company will cater to only the rich, space travel is obviously not an option for the average person. As we mentioned, Yusaku Maezawa is a billionaire, and while Musk won't share just how much he spent to reserve his trip to space, he acknowledged that it was significant. Significant to a billionaire must be a hefty sum, and Maezawa not only bought his own seat, but also the 8 others available for the trip. He now gets to dictate just who will join him and has decided it will be a combination of musicians, artists, and designers. In other words, Joe the plumber will not be on board. The trip to the moon will also be relatively short. According to NASA, the moon is 238,855 miles, or 384,400 kilometers away. This is the distance of 30 Earths. In contrast, Mars, with a distance that varies depending on just where it is in the orbit, is on average 140 million miles or 225 million kilometers away. That's obviously much further. Currently, if technology is not improved, many estimate that the much lengthier trip to Mars would cost $10 billion a person. However, Musk believes that reusable rockets and fitting 100 to 200 people per flight will significantly drive down the cost. His revised estimate, if these conditions are met, is something more like the average cost of a house, or $200,000. He thinks that those who start saving should be able to acquire this sum, or something close to it. And herein lies the problem in being a billionaire. While to him $200,000 is mere change, to others it represents the largest investment they'll ever make in their lives. Not to mention, many who will live in a house do not actually own it, the bank does, and they never had $200,000 available as cash. And say the people do sell all that they own and move to Mars. Once this is done, they will effectively be stuck without the means to return. Although in a worst-case scenario, they may well not want to. Musk also has shared that perhaps in about a century going to Mars might be as little as 100,000 or even less. That means just 100 years to wait and see if a combination of conflict, natural disaster, or pollution that have chased the elite off the planet don't wipe out the poorer segment of society that will be left behind. Not to mention, many still won't be able to afford even this much. He's claimed that there's a 70% chance that he will go to Mars himself to live. In other words, he will be quite safe no matter Earth's circumstances. Which is why his argument that many of the richest might not want to populate Mars due to its harsh climate and lack of infrastructure is a relatively weak one as well. In interviews, Musk has made it perfectly clear that Mars will not be a vacation destination, but a means for self-preservation. If nuclear war on planet Earth seemed imminent or other situations occurred where life was threatened, one would think that the dangers of Mars would seem relatively insignificant in comparison. In these scenarios, it would literally be a difficult life or certain death scenario, which to most is not a difficult decision to make. The fact remains that Mars has half the diameter of Earth. Earth's population is projected to be around 9 billion by 2050. A colony of 1 million is a small fraction of this amount, and even if its space was utilized to its fullest, Mars simply cannot support that many people. So by the nature of the game, many will inevitably be left out. As this is the case, just who would the 1 million colony on Mars be? As we have discussed, it would definitely not be the poor, and likely not the middle class either. It would be the wealthy. Most of the companies attempting to privatize spaceflight to Mars are American, such as Musk's SpaceX and Amazon founder Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin. One would assume that many of those their spacecraft will carry with them would be American as well. While the wealthiest around the world might reserve a seat, entire impoverished nations would likely lack any representation at all. Unlike other modes of travel meant to benefit entire populations such as bikes, cars, buses, boats, trains, or planes, due to the unparalleled cost of its operation, space travel is inherently discriminatory. The plan to populate other planets will not improve the quality of life for most. It's limited on many fronts and will ultimately exclude a majority of the world, while accommodating only a select few. As the private for-profit industry works, these few will most likely be the ones who have the most money to offer and who will make the trip the most financially worthwhile. Elon Musk has promised that colonizing space will be dangerous business, but did you know that hackers are a dangerous threat? Not just to big companies, but individuals like you too. That's why you need Dashlane to keep you and your online account safe and secure, with password storage, a VPN, and breach alerts to let you know when your data's been compromised. Dashlane is the one and only tool you need to keep you safe in a dangerous cyber world. We've been targeted before, our parents have been targeted before, you will be targeted sooner or later as well. Head on over to www.dashlane.com/infographics for a free 30-day trial. And if you use the coupon code Infographics, you can get 10% off a premium subscription today. What do you think? Is SpaceX creating a world for the richest of the rich, or will its founders somehow find a way to include the lower classes? Let us know in the comments. Also, be sure to check out our other video called "Why Does the Media Suddenly Hate Elon Musk?" Thanks for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.